Dostoevsky believed in an idea that is as powerful as it is uncomfortable. The true human being only begins to exist when they accept pain as an inseparable part of their freedom. And this goes against everything you have been taught. From an early age, you were conditioned to think that freedom means doing whatever you want, feeling whatever is most comfortable, choosing the most pleasurable path. But Dostoevsky turns this logic upside down. For him, real freedom begins when you stop fleeing from pain and start consciously choosing what you are willing to face for something that has meaning. Take the case of Sonia in Crime and Punishment, a young woman who, in the face of misery and degradation, chooses prostitution to support her family. But she is not portrayed as a passive victim. On the contrary, she is perhaps the strongest example of existential freedom in all of Dostoevsky's work, because she carries suffering with dignity. Because she does not deny reality, she faces it head-on, without illusions. And it is this capacity to love even in pain, to maintain faith even in despair, that makes her free. Much freer than the men who live surrounded by comfort, but are trapped in their internal lies. This is where the paradox comes in. The more you try to avoid suffering, the more of a slave you become. A slave to your image, to the expectations of others, to your desperate need for approval, for relief, for control. But when you confront pain and say, "Yes, I accept. I choose to go through this," something changes. You take command. You reclaim the control that you previously surrendered to every external stimulus. And this is the freedom that Dostoevsky revered, not the childish freedom to do what one wants, but the mature freedom to choose what one needs. In The Possessed, he writes, "Suffering is a great thing. It should not be erased, for it is consciousness." For him, pain is the battlefield where the soul proves itself, where the superficial self dies and the deep self is born. And that is frightening, of course, because it hurts, because it demands that you stop hiding behind excuses. But it is also where rebirth resides, because when you face your pain with open eyes, it stops dominating you. You are no longer a victim of your feelings. You are someone who suffers, but who chooses what to do with that suffering. Freedom, then, is not the absence of pain. It is the conscious decision to go through it for something that matters. Freedom is not instant happiness. It is depth. It is truth. It is the end of illusions and the beginning of an authentic existence, even if it costs everything you thought you needed to be happy. But then the inevitable question arises: why do we insist so much on this pursuit? Why, even in the face of all this, do we continue trying at all costs to be happy? Why is it so difficult to simply stop and accept what is? This is what we will explore next: the blind impulse for happiness and the question you may have never had the courage to ask: what if you stopped trying to be happy? This is the question that no one wants to hear, because it exposes the wound that everyone tries to hide. Why, even after so much pain, so much emptiness, so much frustration, do you still insist on chasing a happiness that never arrives? What exactly do you expect to find at the end of this road? Relief? Meaning? Redemption? Dostoevsky would look you in the eyes right now, with that merciless calm of someone who knows the depths of the abyss, and say, "You are looking in the wrong place. You want to be happy." But do you know what that means? Or are you just repeating the script that was taught to you? The script that says you need to have a perfect body, a brilliant career, an enviable love life, and a positive mind to be a complete person. The problem is that this script was not written by your soul. It was imposed. And you, without realizing it, are living as if you were a character in an empty play. A play that slowly consumes you but that you continue to perform because you think there is no alternative. Dostoevsky knew that modern man would become a slave to this pursuit. In The Eternal Husband, he portrays characters who drown in self-deception, desperately trying to fill an internal void with external ideas of achievement. It is a portrait of the human being who has already lost connection with their own essence, but continues to act as if there is still something to conquer. Lying is the only possible way of life for certain people, he writes. And perhaps this is one of the harshest phrases you can hear today, because it forces you to look within and ask, am I seeking happiness or just trying to escape from myself? You think you are seeking peace, but you are trying to avoid silence. You think you want love, but you are just fleeing from loneliness. You say you want to feel alive, but you are merely trying to distract yourself from the symbolic death you live every day. This is the trap. You seek happiness, not because you are ready to live it, but because you are afraid of what you will find if you stop running. What if you simply stopped? Stopped pretending, stopped chasing, stopped trying to fix yourself all the time? What would remain? Perhaps an emptiness? Perhaps a silence you have never faced? Perhaps a pain that has been hidden since childhood? But Dostoevsky believed that it is in that moment, when you shed all masks and face existence naked, that something true finally happens. Maybe you are on the brink of that now. Perhaps everything you have lived until now has brought you to this point, the exhaustion of trying to be happy. And if that is the case, then there is hope. Because from here, the search changes. The question shifts from how can I be happy to how can I live sincerely, even if it hurts. And that is exactly the key to the last part of our journey. Understanding that true peace, that which does not depend on applause, achievements, or external stimuli, is not in the happiness that was sold to you. It is in something much deeper, quieter, and more transformative. It is in the acceptance of pain as part of life. Let's close this cycle by talking about that, because now you are ready. We have reached a point that few can attain, the place where truth finally reveals itself. And it does not come with lights, nor with certainties, nor with euphoria. It comes in silence. In that moment, when you stop resisting, when at last you surrender, and understand that life is not meant to be dominated, optimized, or conquered. It is meant to be felt, with all its intensity, with all its pain, with all its tragic beauty. Dostoevsky understood this like no one else. He did not write to please. He wrote to confront. And if his books remain alive to this day, it is because they say what no one has the courage to say out loud, that suffering is inevitable, and that fleeing from it only deepens the hole. Embrace suffering and gain freedom. That was the cry echoing behind his most tormented characters. The freedom that comes not from the absence of pain, but from reconciliation with it. True peace, and here I am not talking about momentary relief, but about real, firm, solid peace, is not found at the end of pain. It is in the full acceptance that it is part of you. When you stop fighting against what you feel and start listening to what your pain is trying to say, it changes form. It ceases to be an enemy. It becomes a guide. It stops being a burden. It becomes a portal. Dostoevsky saw this even in the most brutal experiences. In The Idiot, Prince Mishkin is the symbol of purity thrown into a sick world, and yet he carries his pain with a serenity that disturbs everyone around him. Not because he does not suffer, but because he does not flee, because he accepts, because he sees beyond. The true, strong soul, according to Dostoevsky, is not the one that does not feel, but the one that refuses to betray what it feels in the name of a false peace. And perhaps this is what you need right now, not a new answer, but a new kind of courage. The courage to look at your pain and say, I see you, and I will no longer run from you. Because when you do that, when you abandon the illusion of constant happiness and embrace reality as it is, a new space opens up within you, a space of truth, of presence, of peace. If this message has touched you in some way, comment below, I stopped running. Say it out loud, write it down, record it, because perhaps this is the most important decision of your life so far. And if you know someone who is still trying to force a smile while bleeding inside, share this video with that person. You could be the spark of their turnaround. And before you go, don't forget, the next video continues this journey. It is important. And if you've made it this far, you need to keep going, because transformation does not happen all at once. It happens step by step, and the next step starts now.